Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Inside the Orange podcast, the podcast all about understanding the people around us. Now, firstly, thank you so much for the support and the views, likes, and shares from last week's episode with Mark Holson, the leadership coach. If you haven't seen it yet, there'll be links in the description for you to go back and find that, as well as links to the rest of this season and the rest of the channel. In today's episode, I've got three guests. It's Sam, Gina and Doug from the Autism Rocks and Rolls pod. Now, they've requested that the podcast be audio only. So those watching on YouTube, obviously, it will be an audio only podcast. For you listening on Apple or Spotify or however you listen to the podcast, obviously you won't see any difference or hear any change. But it's a great interview and it really opens up a lot of the stereotypes and barriers that autistic people face. So, let's get into the episode. So my guest today is someone I'm really excited to be interviewing. He's a guy from the US. He's a podcaster. He's host of the Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast. It's absolutely brilliant. Have a listen. The link will be in the description. He's joined with his mum, Gina, today. But the guy, Sam Mitchell, absolutely buzzing to have this interview today. So Sam, Gina, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you again for having us. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're very excited to be here. So thank you for having us on your show.
No worries at all. Thank you for being here. I wanted to start with, I want you to just give a bit of a quick thing for my listeners. So talk to us about the Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast. Where did it come from? What's the idea?
Sure. So so we have a hospital in Indianapolis. It's called Riley Hospital, and that's near and dear to my heart as time has gone on. But they offer dance marathons where you can go play games. You dance for 24 hours. You can't sit down. She tried that once. Her knees were crippled the next day. And anyway, what happened was our school had our first annual one. So I noticed these people coming down with cameras. It's one of our school board members and some of my classmates. So I wondered, what are they doing? So I asked them what they were doing. I said, all right, it's media club. It's about this. Join next year because there's a lot of projects. Sure. Fast forward to sophomore year. That's where I found the podcasting, where I run my own schools and still do run my last year of running my own school's podcast, Thundercast, where we interview school teachers and topics that affect the school community. But I decided eventually I was kind of tired of it, kind of got stale, and I still do it, but I want to add something to it. I thought, what if I could do one on my own? And sure enough, I did. And then I got it for my birthday party and decided to start it. And then she's a teacher and the education came out of it. So she told me, what's the purpose? And it's going to be about travels, but at the last minute, I don't know why. Still don't know. I flipped it for some reason, making it about autism.
Okay, I mean, and to be fair, it's a really interesting topic to talk about. Again, I've mentioned before, I did a podcast episode last season about autism from a dad's perspective. What I was really encouraged today, I listened to one of your episodes, Sam, which was the father and son episode with your dad. And I found it really, really good to listen to it. It was nice to hear you asking questions to your dad. Dad, what's this like? So, I'm not here today to ask you about what autism's like, but how has the podcast kind of helped you? And, has it helped having your parents on board with this?
Oh, yes. My parents are very supportive. If I had to say, what's the best thing about your parents, that was a question, they're supportive. That would be the honest, straight up answer. But it does help, but what was the question? Oh, it has helped me grow a little bit of self-confidence. It's helped me honestly be able to talk to people more often. And it's therapeutic, definitely. And I always joke around. I feel like autistic people need, what I joke around, say, second homes. I mean, granted, this house is my home, but then we need a second home where we can go to a coop, like a cooping area. And where the podcast has that, but the studio where I'm currently in right now is my sanctuary as well.
Okay, really good question. A question for you, Gina. So how much kind of allowance is there for Sam to talk about autism? I mean, do you give him any kind of boundaries? Is there stuff he isn't allowed to talk about? Is it just, Sam, this is your thing, go with it?
It's his thing. And he is, like a lot of times I'll
You're
say,
the editor.
yeah, a lot of times I'll say we, just because it's he's my boss. I really joke and say, like, I'm still waiting for a paycheck, but it's okay. I'll do it for free forever. But he's the voice behind the podcast. I do everything that you don't see, behind it. So, but as far as him, like what he wants to do, I mean, he's 18, he's a senior in high school. He kind of tells me how it's going to go and what he wants to do. But on the flip side of that, I hope that, my husband and I have raised him to be a respectful young man. So if things do come out in the podcast, it just, it needs to be respectful, hands down. And he, there may have been some times where he always lets me listen to it before he releases it.
Yeah, and there are times when I've said something like kind of that came out the wrong way or kind of odd.
Yeah, and I'll point it out. And I can think of a couple of times where I had to use I understand that you're like 17, 18, but you live in my house. And this is being released from my basement in this studio. So I can only think of one or two times that I just was like, you're not doing that. But most of the time it's just suggestions. And so no, I can't stop him. I mean, he's an adult and it's his thing, but as long as he lives here, he's gonna be respectful. So
and I have been. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
That's really good to know. And yeah, okay, fantastic answer there, Gina. Thank you. So, Sam, one of the things about the Inside the Orange podcast, what I do is about having people understood. So if you could today, how do you want to be understood? I don't want to talk for you. How do you want to be understood in the world that we live in?
I want them to understand that I'm functioning and can still function in society. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also do like sell merchandise and all that stuff. So I'm definitely better than I once was, but I just want people to understand that we're not broken, we're not dumb, we're not the first words that come to your mind when you think, oh, this is autistic child.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, I've always wanted to know like what Sam's mission is.
I'm going to give you a piggyback.
And no, don't give me a piggyback. It probably wouldn't be good. But as far as his mission, that's always come out, and I think that's really important. But from a mother's standpoint, like I don't want people to think that he's broken, and there is nothing about Sam and that I think and your son as well. They don't need to be fixed. There is nothing wrong with them. They may clinically have a disability. We don't really use that word.
Or normal.
Yeah, like there are people that probably I want to be really careful because I don't want people to think, why is she saying that there's no such thing as a disability? Because absolutely there is. But at the same time, if we want to get technical about it, we're all disabled.
Yeah, you can't do math.
I can't do math. I mean, I have a clinical math disability, and maybe, like my husband can't spell if his life depended on it. That is a challenge that he has, and that's could be considered a disability. So I just want people to understand that. And, he was talking about when the podcast started, his mission was, like to help, to educate. And now that it's gotten so big, he is starting to monetize it as an entrepreneur. And, that's completely fine. And, we have awesome sponsors. I mean, we have our sponsor in Bloomington, Indiana. They have several across Indiana. They have pain management. So it's Wellspring, and we always want to give a plug for them. Wellspring's pain solutions. I cannot talk today. Wellspring Pain Solutions, commercial service in Bloomington, Indiana, and Perfection Auto Glass in Bloomington, Indiana. And then we also have other small sponsors such as
Salon 45.
Yeah,
in Bloomfield.
Salon 45, Bloomfield, Indiana. Stephen Miller, CPA Tax Service. So we have several of those. So he has jumped aboard of sponsorships as well. So, it kind of went from a hobby to still a hobby, but now explosion which is very cool. But within, I guess that's the long answer. Within all of that, there's still that core message, sponsors, everything else that's happening. But in that bubble, and that core message is, we've got to take the stigma off of autism and help people understand these people that fall on the definition of a spectrum often are not disabled. They are functioning in society. They're important, and they have lots of things to offer.
And talents.
And they're human beings. And we need to, I feel like, step back and give everybody a chance to show what they know. Even people that are low on the spectrum. I don't care if somebody is nonverbal. That doesn't matter. There's something within that person they can offer. They can offer to society. And I just feel like that is so important as he moves forward and you move forward, with your mission. So
yeah,
that's the long answer.
No, look, that's again another beautiful answer, and I thank you so much for doing it and for giving the answer. And yeah, as I say, the one thing that comes from that is, Sam's mission is very clear. You can see it, and that's why I was really interested in covering it for my podcast, because it resonated with me 100%. It resonated with me. And I think, just to pick up something you said, you were there very carefully saying about not referring to it a simple way. I think the one thing that I'm very careful in some of the posts I put out about how I term it, but I think if you're talking about how it's accepted in your house and how you discuss it and how you talk about it, that's fine. There's nothing to be offended there. Any terminology I use is talked about with my son to make sure he's comfortable with it. And all you're doing is the same thing. It's how you do it. And everyone's journey with this is different and individual. So 100%, nothing wrong with saying that. So Sam, what are you passionate about? I know understanding what you're getting your message across, but what do you love? What makes you smile?
This and editing it, honestly, doing the editing like with Audacity or using Audacity app. Oh, I don't know why I find it fascinating.
I could see Sam,
That's like you last night when we were doing it. Me, I do an English paper, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm excited about this."
I teach English, and he's very good at English, but we sat down to write a 6-paragraph English paper, and I was in my element. He was doing it, and I'm like, okay, you can say this here. And I just really, that's my passion.
I looked at you like with dead, like, what the hell?
Yeah, he's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you excited about this? But yeah, podcasting and
editing.
Yeah, I was going to say editing. I could see Sam, he's college bound. He's going to go to the local college here next year, and then a college in Southern Indiana. His sophomore year is what he says he wants to do. But yeah, he loves the editing. So I could see him maybe continuing to do a podcast, but maybe getting into something with media to where he's like behind the scenes and producing and editing and stuff, because that's what he likes to record it. But then when it's time to listen to it and piece it together and edit, that's his expertise. So
it's showing Audacity's a pain sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Technology is.
But it's like an art, isn't it? To do it, you want it to look the best. You can, Sam, don't you? You want it to be the best version. Let's say it's no different to any other art. It's just not on an easel with a paintbrush. Is that fair to say?
Right, absolutely. I think so. That was like with the English paper. That's like a paintbrush to me. Like that's, I think in words. And
I do too. That's what we have.
Yeah, I think in words, and I think I'm a very auditory learner. I'm not a real visual learner. I like to listen, and I just kind of take it all in. So, but yeah, I think
I'm both. I think honestly, I'm more visual, but there's a little bit of auditory in me.
Yeah,
like that's why I like podcasts. It's so visual.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of auditory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like there's so many different forms of creativity and art forms, and I think that's what you guys are doing. I think podcasting is this new platform where you can be just as creative as you want to, take it to whatever level you want to.
Even someone who didn't pass 4th grade can do podcasting, honestly.
Yeah, I mean as long as you teach yourself, or get help.
And that's a really fair point, and something I want to take, especially in the UK, but I mean, if it works throughout the world, you know, having people learn how it works for them. Do you know what I mean? This audio learning, doing this, you know, is an amazing skill to have, by having the ability to write English, to be able to speak English, to be able to draw. You know, this kind of learning still needs to be accepted by a lot of businesses, a lot of places in the world. I think we're still very much question and answer led. And I think you're losing so much of the kind of range of people, because if you can get them to express themselves how they can express themselves, you know, you've got billions of geniuses out there. They've just got to be tapped into the way they do it. And something that's really important, I'm going to sit here now, I'm 35 years old, and, you know, and starting a podcast. Sam, you know, if you don't mind me saying, you're 18 years old and you're doing it. I mean, you have got such a bright future with this, 100%. You know, if you found something that you really feel at 18, then pursue it, because you are spreading, one, a fantastic message, and two, you're talking about a real thing. You're talking something that tugs on people and says, I want to know more about that. So Sam, please keep doing it for as long as you need to do it. I just wanted to get that in there. 100%.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
No worries. I did want to, to talk about it. Sorry, I just put my notes a bit out of reach. So I want to ask, what is your advice to people who want to understand autism better?
That's a good question. I would say treat me like anyone else, and you'll see the differences.
Yeah, because I mean, you are like everyone else.
Or attempt to be.
Well, but that's just the thing, though.
I really don't try to be. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, like, I don't want to speak for Sam at all, but when we have talked about it, that's my message as a mom, is what I have taught him is, don't try to be like anybody else. You know, like when you're in middle school, high school, that awful age where you're trying to fit in and, you know, you want to be like other people. You know, it wasn't until I hit in my 30s, I finally realized, why do people do that? Like, this is Sam.
Yeah, I learned that though for longer.
He doesn't need to be
sooner.
Yeah, like like we've really talked about that a lot. You know, even if somebody says, well, I learn in a different way, there's nothing offensive about that, and that's true. Like, everybody learns, but, you know, sometimes my thought is, different than how? What are you comparing it to? Like, you're you and I'm me, and I am different, but every single person is different. So even saying it's okay to be different, like, compared to what? I mean, it's just, I just feel like if we could all get on board of this acceptance and just be you, and don't bring up people are different, and, you know, they're like, this is normal, this is typical, that just shouldn't exist. It really doesn't exist in our world.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to be you, period.
100%. So the podcast is called the Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast. So where did the name come from? How did you get to the name?
Well, autism, obviously. It was going to be Inside Autistic Brain, but then we figured that was kind of boring. So we decided autism, and then I love rock music so much that we rocks and rolls.
Okay, so who do you love in rock music? Let's find that out.
AC/DC and Nickelback. There's a tie for those two.
Tie, so no one, AC/DC is not better than Nickelback, or other way around, no?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. What if you have to pick?
I can't. Sorry.
Okay. I know who I'd pick.
Well, that's because you're old.
Hey. Yeah, you said you were 35, and I was just sitting here thinking, to be 35 again.
I thought you were younger than me, to be honest, but there you go. That's
it.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I said I thought you were younger than me, so that's fine.
Oh my gosh, no! I actually just had my 45th birthday.
Oh, fantastic! Brilliant.
I am not 46. Do not add years to me, please.
Wait, I thought you were 50.
No, that's really good. So what have been the best things you've like talking about on the podcast, Sam? If you were to pick your top 3 episodes, I know that's really tough, but go on. What?
Oh, no, I can. So far, we all have our own friends. So mine's making friends. Again, that girl I love. Like I want to talk about making friendships, because I'm working on that still to this day, but I'm better at it than compare myself from doing it 8th grade to now, or 2014 to 2021. Oh my goodness, I am so much better at that. conversation operation, people need to know how we start and exit a conversation and why it's difficult. I don't think people can understand that 100%. So, and then my 130, meet Peter Lance. I just liked him because he was so unique and eccentric in a good way.
Mhm.
So those are my top 3.
Oh, awesome. And how? Go on. Sorry,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were able to listen to the Temple Grandin one, Pictures on the Ranch.
From Temple Grandin.
From Temple Grandin. She's a doctor of animal science at Colorado State University, and probably in the US and really worldwide, she's probably one of the most well-known autism advocates. You know, she has autism herself. She's an older lady, and she basically what she's known for is she built cattle handling systems for the agriculture world, and it just changed. It changed, but she was able to do that because she had autism. She was able to see this big picture, and that's where I think abilities come in. Is people do have disabilities, and I've often said if we were to take away, which we should never want to, autism is a piece of
they always try to like cure autism with a drug. I always joke around, and I mean, I'm not taking it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. But I don't want to ignore the fact of disabilities, because the fact that clinically the medical world sees him as disabled, which he's not, but if they see him like that, he would not get any services. And those services is, you know, with the support of us and his friends, if you take away the dis, then he doesn't get services. So that's why I don't ever want to ignore the disability. But, you know, like Temple Grandin said on that episode, that's my favorite one. She talked about,
I thought it was 102.
Well,
you have a lot of
them are my
favorites.
favorite. But she talked about abilities and how that's kind of what the problem is the society doesn't really tap into those abilities. And she's, you know, one of her favorite things to say is people that are on the autism spectrum are not getting jobs. And I'm very worried about that. Like, because that happens, and there's so much to offer, you know.
Yeah, she believes in early intervention, manners, etc., etc.
Well, and Amazon went through, they're probably still doing it, but Amazon, I had read 2 or 3 years ago, they were actually specifically hiring people that were on the autism spectrum because they did not make mistakes because they're perfectionists and they're very like out of the box thinkers. And so they were realizing like, this is our profile here. Like, we need people that come in and do good work. So I just always thought that was interesting.
No, it is, and you know, I had a thing I posted again about the time I was doing my autism from a dad's perspective episode, that 16% of autistic adults in the UK are in full-time employment. So that's 16, 6. And it's a very, very scary kind of figure, because, you know, I understand there are people who would not have the ability to have a full-time job, but there's people that want full-time jobs, but maybe they can't get into it. So, you know, I'm really what you've just said there, going have a look there at the episode you just discussed, because 100%, I think that's still a massive problem, that we just believe that well, I don't want to say it, but they can't do a job for us. Why the hell not? Do you know what I mean? Why can't someone do a job for you? Again, the attention to detail, the focus, everything like that, you know, the routine, you know, having a job.
Being a teacher, honestly, I could see that example, or anything, really.
Anything. Like, I completely agree with
cook,
you.
even, or a detective.
Well, what they are able to do, but that is the same with everybody. There are things that I either choose not to get into, like, for example, career-wise, but then anything that has to do with math, that would be horrible for me. But I just don't think there's any difference at all. There are certain things that I wouldn't go into because I can't.
You should see me with professional wrestling. Oh my goodness. I mean, I know everything about it. It's honestly dead serious. Like, Gina, you know it's true.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because my little WWE fan. I mean, I post stuff on my Twitter. I have John Cena turning up, dressed up on a dress up Saturday. He loves it. You see my Twitter, Orange Watts. I've been dressed
Who's his
myself.
favorite?
Sorry, say again.
Who's his favorite all time?
John Cena's got to be up there. But just about 2-3 weeks ago, I was dressed as JR from the commentary because he wanted to dress as Jerry the King Lawler. And he said, Dad, I need a JR. And the amount of time. So talk to me, because the first episode I listened to, the first episode of Sam's Stories, that first glass smash, I believe that's a certain wrestler, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Is that right?
That's your favorite. Mine's Mick Foley, Mr. Sacco.
Well, he's talking about the intro.
Yeah.
He's talking about the
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that's just outro's Diesel.
That is so great because that's something else that we all have in common, because he got into wrestling when he was 6 and we were like, well, this is good. He's interested. It'll like fade away. He's 18.
I still watch it.
And but I don't know if this is the case with your son, but most people that are on the spectrum do have something in their mind that they become obsessed with.
Yeah, it kind of drove me crazy for wrestling. I feel bad for it now, but back then I did.
Well, I mean, kids do that kind of anyway. But as far as like some kids know everything about like people that are on the spectrum, like dinosaurs, baseball, but that was and is his. He can tell you anything. I'm not exaggerating. So I didn't know if that was true for your son or not.
Let me just for a second there. So the episode again, from a dad's perspective, I said to people that he can chronologically tell you WrestleMania winners from 1 to 36. He can
do that with the main events.
Main events, yeah. And I said, how is that not an employable thing? Do you know what I mean? If he understands that so much, how is that not transferable to another job? Of course it is.
Like so, that. Yeah, I mean, just so many. And I don't know if you still do this, Sam, but there was a point where Sammy, when he was younger, he had on a Google Doc, how many pages?
Several, with like creating like an overboard mess, because like one I was creating match where they threw him over a boat.
But it was hundreds of Google.
I still do with like a travel, like a little document.
Yeah, but hundreds of pages of Google
it's every once in a while.
Docs of this whole wrestling season, and then I'm like looking at it like WWE should see this. Like this is what their writers do. This is what, and so 100% agree. Like there's so many skills of what our sons can do.
100%. And I'll just finish on this bit for this part, but I even said in the episode, again, without just hammering home about that, it's not about that today, but I said, if you give him an English assignment to do, if he had to write about a poem from 30 years ago, you'd get 4 lines. If you asked him to write about the Royal Rumble from 1992, he would write you an encyclopedia.
Yep, that's Sam.
Yep.
That is Sam. I mean, that is just the best thing that I have ever, or that I have, the connections that we have made
I told him about that.
That's great. I mean, that is absolutely, we would love, with your permission, of course, just to say hi to your son sometime.
Of course, yeah. he talks even more than his father, so there's a problem. It's getting him to stop.
That's the difference. My family, we're talkative too, honestly, though.
Yeah, we are.
Loud, talkative, in your face, sort of.
Yeah. For sure.
So, again, that's absolutely brilliant, and it's lovely to share such a connection. It really is. But Sam, I want to ask you then. I'm thinking about my son now. He's 13. He's coming into in the UK. He's going into upper school, high school now. So we do a free kind of tier system in the UK. What's your advice, knowing now? So for someone who is going into that high school setting, what would you say to him from your experience? Are you okay with that? Is that okay?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of a way to word it. Well, it's honestly, do your grades, do your studies, obviously, and try your best to enjoy it. I mean, it's hard sometimes. I mean, high school, it's odd. Your parents aren't there. Your teachers are sometimes not the nicest. Sometimes you got teachers that care about you. Just know them and try to enjoy it, because you get to be a high schooler once, honestly.
Yeah, and I think just take it in stride. I mean, Sam
try to make it the best as you can. high school is what you make of it.
Yeah. Sam had lots of struggles, but I did too. I mean, I'm not on the autism spectrum.
Yeah,
but
because
I had a lot of bullying because of my weight, and Sam combated, bullying and things like that. But he just kind of adjusted his mentality to, hey, I'm me. You don't like me? Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't enjoy freshman and junior because I wasn't at that mindset. But because junior year, I did have that mindset, but it was just tons of work. And I probably should have relaxed a little more, and I would have enjoyed it, realizing that now. But sophomore year, man, that's the best year of my life because of that one thing I did. But I also enjoyed myself. I enjoyed life, I can say. And this year, I'm enjoying life too. So.
Brilliant, lovely answer, Sam. Honestly, and so what's the plan for 10 years? If we could jump in a time machine now and we could see Sam in 10 years' time, what are you doing, buddy?
Don't know. Only time will tell.
Okay. Great answer.
It's not a secret. It's a mystery, honestly. That's why I'm going to Scooby-Doo, honestly. It's the mystery machine. I'm a big fan of Scooby-Doo. Still am, even though I'm 18. Who cares?
You like what you like.
You do like what you like. And again, there's that individuality there that, that's a brilliant, it's a fantastic message to kind of go on. For me today, I mean, this has been lovely. And again, it's lovely to have someone who's so open and so willing to talk about everything, that it does affect me. It does. It's why I wanted you to come on the show, because it does affect me. It affects my personal life. But what I want is people to be understood. So, Sam, again, thank you so much for doing that. Again, I think we're going to catch up, because when I tell my son about this, he's going to be like, you talked about WWE and I wasn't there. What's going on?
If my dad was up, he could probably answer some questions. He's on third shift. He works at in Bedford. He's an electrician, but if he was up, you could probably ask him some questions.
Well, I've gone to school before, because I've been in the house when it's on since he was 6, but the kids at school, they're 8th graders, and they'll be talking about wrestling, and I'll joke and say, ask me anything, and they'll ask me and they're floored. They're like, how does she know all of this? So.
My son, thank my son.
No, and it's brilliant. Just one thing, as I say, I'm really blessed today that you've both come on this, because it's really good to get an idea from both Sam and from a mother. Now, I've done an episode called Dad's Perspective on Autism. Again, I've mentioned it a couple of times. But while you're here, Gina, just tell me from a mum's perspective. Tell other mums that might be listening to this, might find this. How can you help them? Tell them some bits that might just help them in their day.
Well, I was, off of podcasting and with podcasting. I've been asked that, lots throughout our life. But I don't look at myself as an expert at all. We had a child. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. And I did go through like a very short spell of woe is me. Why is this happening? I did everything right. Felt sorry for myself, very short period of time, but then moved on. And instead of saying, oh, great, Sam has autism, it was more of what can I do? What can I give him, and the services I can give him, to be successful. And so that's kind of what we worked on. But my message would simply be, you got to just do your best. There's been times where I can think, oh my gosh, I handled that situation so wrong. He was really struggling. I thought he was being a turd, and he was punished.
That's the hardest thing with autism.
It was tough.
And that still is, you don't know whether they're being a kid or if they're having like this like issue, like serious, like not serious problem, but like this problem that they're being autistic. It's like, okay, they need to help them. Yeah,
like that's what I would say is, do your best and don't beat yourself up. We are all in this together, and we're all doing the very best that we can. But I would also say, just be patient with your child and let them, as long as they're not disrespecting anybody, and as long as it's not too overboard,
or they're breaking the law
or hurting something, if they're really upset, if none of that is happening and they want to do something or don't want to do something, I just think you have to pick your battles. I think you have to, Sam went through a phase one time, well, he still does. He was like, he hated blue jeans.
I still do.
And this is like a minor example, but I remember looking at my husband as like, what is the deal? He has to wear blue jeans. And finally I was like, why? If he never puts on a pair of blue jeans in his life, what's going to happen? Like, and so that's a
Yeah,
very,
I wear khakis. I mean, I go to CEO. I mean, I don't wear blue jeans, but I wear substitutes for it. I mean, I wear khaki pants.
yeah, and that's the kind of a trivial, very small example, but you know, you just that's what I would say is just let them be them.
Yeah, and again, it was a great example because it's the simplicity of how something can be, and then you just have to think to yourself, no, why am I doing this? Why am I expecting this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Back to the individuality.
Well, and on the flip
You
side,
can wear shorts.
yeah, but
even though it'll be freezing, but
right. But on the flip side of that, I think that as a parent, you do have to have solid expectations.
yes, 100%. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one time that Sam said something, maybe twice, but Sam said something about, you know what, Mom, I can't because remember I have Asperger's or I have autism. And I just remember looking at him like, I don't know what you want me to do about that. This still has to get done. So you need to figure out a way to do it. Because
I got whooped for that. I got chewed on for that.
Well, I mean, you can't use that as an excuse.
Of
An employer in the real world, if he gets hired and he can't do the job, they're just going to be like, okay, like we'll find somebody that can. I mean, you just can't let that attitude kind of soak things up. But there will be times where you think, okay, like this isn't rational. He probably can't do this right now, and that's okay. But there's two sides of it. You got to hold him accountable, and you have to have expectations, but be realistic.
Maybe if he is, I can ask him because he liked father and son. Maybe you can meet the father and ask him a couple questions.
Oh, well, I don't know how much time you have. Sam said, we hear my husband upstairs, and he's wondering if you would like to say hi to him.
Or because you love that episode.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, if you've got time, guys, I've got time.
We don't want to take up too
I'll
much
see if he's
Oh, no, you've got all the time ever. I mean, yeah, I mean, as I say, this is an education for me because it's nice. It's good because this is what I want to show to the business world is the story behind people. You know, this is what this is, I'm an advocate for it. You know, in the UK, we've got something called the National Autistic Society. And I'm trying to do some stuff with them. And autism is my big thing because it started me on the journey of understanding people better by having it sounds so dreadful, but by having a son with autism, I had to think differently. I had to think what is behind, like you said with the jeans, Gina, you can't just go, well, why are they not wearing jeans? You've got to think about, well, actually, this isn't making him very comfortable. Maybe I don't need, what's not wearing jeans going to do for the rest of his life?
Yeah. But then like I said, on the flip side of that, there's things that I'm like, okay, like he is really struggling with this, but it's necessary. And
it's necessary to
he has to. And so you figure out, it's okay. You figure out ways to instead of just giving up or just making him do it, like what can I do?
Yeah, it's extremely necessary to it's necessary to be on it. It's necessary to figure out the difference between honesty and bluntness. That's one of my biggest issues is I don't have no filter. It's true. That's probably gonna come with your son as he gets older. Just FYI.
Well, and there's times where I think it's so good to be a very confident, independent, outspoken person. That's a skill. That's something that will carry Sam far in life. But on the flip side of that, there's a time and a place, and he has a hard time understanding that sometimes. But the genes aren't necessary, but that's necessary for him to understand, like, okay, you can say that like around your buddies, but not around your grandma. But that's hard.
Well, it's hard because my grandmas are really different personalities.
Sure.
That's the problem is we got one. I love them both. I'm not saying they both suck, but one's funny and cool. Not cool, but outgoing. One's more like the prim proper family.
Well, they just have different. Okay, my husband
personalities.
Here,
so. Yeah. He says this is the father. So. Okay.
No, that's fine. Hello, sir. I'm Rich. Please, lovely to meet you.
Yeah, my name's Doug. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Doug, I listened earlier on to Sam's episode with you, and I found it so lovely and enlightening that he was asking you about what it was like living with him with autism. I thought that was brilliant. I mean, for people to go and find the episode, but what have you learned from Sam, like literally from life?
To look at things in a different perspective, really. Try to imagine what it's like looking through the world with his eyes, and then try to help him deal with whatever he's dealing with.
His son has.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's challenging sometimes, but we always get through it.
100%. And I suppose, Sam said earlier on to me that he had a great foundation with you and Gina's mum. It's brilliant. But, obviously, what would your advice? I asked Gina from a mum's perspective, what would your advice be to dads who, maybe they've got newly diagnosed autistic people in their life, or someone who may be struggling? What would your advice be to them?
Just to let them try to be themselves and be patient, and give them extra time with things to figure things out, because sometimes it takes longer, and just try to be as supportive as you can. And basically with Gina and I, she's the one that will nurture him, and I'm the one that'll say, figure it out, come on, you can do this, so it works out good for us.
No, I think that's really important. I've said I've got an episode coming up this season as well about I'm blessed. I've got parents that are called how and why parents. My mum would say, everything you're doing is amazing. My dad would go, but you could do it better. And having that balance is perfect. So I think you're onto the right thing there. And, Sound Flourishing, this podcast is going amazingly well. Like the Autism Rocks and Roll podcast, that is amazing. You've created such an amazing individual who's allowed to express themselves with boundaries, with certain boundaries, but, hats off to you both. Maybe if you don't hear it enough, you guys are absolute heroes to this, because, you're giving someone a boundary to get that message out to the world. So 100% thank you both for that. And
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. With the podcast, Gina is really involved with it and helps him along the way, but I'm the guy that works does the studio stuff, puts stuff together for him and that kind of thing.
Both really important.
Yeah.
Really, is that not nice wrestling? Like,
oh yeah.
And we were talking earlier about wrestling as well. So we've both got sons that are very into their WWE, I've heard. So,
yeah, we went several times. Yeah, so that's always a good time.
Brilliant. Like Doug, thank you so much for your time. It's lovely to meet you, and again, it's nice to
nice to meet you.
Cheers, Doug.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Doug. No, it's just lovely. I mean, as I say, it was lovely to meet Doug. It's been lovely to see Eugene. The interview today with Sam, just brilliant. And it's lovely to see that family, kind of how much it is as a family that you are kind of helping each other, really. It's absolutely brilliant. And I thank you for the bottom of my heart for even letting me have an insight into this. No, that's fine.
You get to learn. If you want to learn more about me, look at my website. But I'll just tell you, like, I love dogs as well. Big dog person. Like, we always joke around. We don't like any other animals necessarily, but dogs. I mean, well, I don't love animals, but I don't want to hurt them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know, but that's just the thing. But if you want to learn more about me, check out the podcast, because I say a lot of other stuff that come out like that are with my personality.
Yeah, I can go ahead and tell you if you don't mind how people can connect to Sam. And but yeah, his website is www.autismrocksandrolls.com. That has everything on it. I'm actually putting together a second website, a sponsorship website that you can, if you want to jump aboard. And we've got some, like I said, really great sponsors: Wellspring Pain Solutions, Commercial Service, Greene County General Hospital in Linton, Indiana is a sponsor as well. You can also buy ad space, which a lot of our sponsors have chosen to do. Some have completely jumped on board and, like changed their whole office with posters and their t-shirts and their pins and, like buying Sam equipment. And there's just so many different ways that you can support his mission. He is also on all of the social media platforms as well. TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, they're all there. And then trying to think of what else, Sam?
Info. You can email me at mitchellsam171@gmail.com or my mother's podcast email, info@autismrocksandrolls.com.
Yeah, lots of ways to.
There's a way. I'm out there, man.
you're out there for sure.
Or call me, I guess. Go to Google and hit the call button.
There you go.
Honestly, I'll make sure everything's in the whatever you send me for what you want. It'll be all in the show notes and the description for YouTube and for the show notes for the podcast channels as well. Honestly, because it's just been so inspiring listening to you both today and Doug for a short part as well. Just hearing stories and how your podcast is just helping, and it's helping the world and it's reaching people, and that's why you've got sponsors, that's why you've got so many people willing to put their name to you, because you are sending such a genuine, authentic message, and you are going to change the world, Sam. This is what we talk about, on this. You are going to change the world. You're talking to a guy that lives in the UK today. I know you were saying you've got other podcasts and bits and pieces, other bits with other countries as well. I mean, that just shows how well your authentic message is doing. So, Sam, well done. Keep it up. And thank you for letting me be a part of this today, honestly.
Of course.
So much.
Of course.
For you, we just want to make sure that I'll get his website updated within the next day or two.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Autism Sam Stories. We'll put your stuff on there.
Yeah, we'll put you on our Facebook page. We'll put you on the website. And you'll have that spot just to show our gratitude of helping him spread his message. So
yes, you guys. I'm going to sign off there. But again, thank you so much, guys, for your time, and take care. Thank you. AC/DC was that Nickelback.
That was rock on, man. That was my way of saying bye.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So on next week's show, I'll be joined by autism advocate Anna Kennedy. I'm so looking forward to that episode, and I look forward to you joining me. So I'll see you then. Thanks for listening to this episode. If this podcast is something you enjoy, then please subscribe to the podcasts and make sure you like and share so more people can hear our message. Remember, if you have any questions for me or my guests, you can get in touch via our website, insidetheorange.co.uk, on Twitter @OrangeWatts, on Instagram @InsideTheOrange, or on Facebook on the Inside the Orange podcast. And finally, there's the email of insidethisorange@gmail.com. All these links will be available in the description. Thanks for listening, goodbye and take care.